Japan's economy has been dying for 30 years. Debt exceeds 260% of GDP. The population is shrinking. Growth has been stagnant since 1991, yet somehow Japan still functions. Stores are stocked. The government pays its bills. Zimbabwe printed so much money that inflation hit 89.76 trillion%. A loaf of bread cost 300 billion Zimbabwean dollars. The currency literally became worthless. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Modern economies don't die the way they used to. They don't collapse overnight in spectacular explosions. Instead, they re-kept alive through accounting tricks so sophisticated that most people never realize they're reliving in an economic zombie state. Today, we re-pulling back the curtain on the financial magic tricks that allow dying economies to shamble forward, and why you're repaying the hidden cost. Background: to understand how we got here, we need to go back to August 15, 1971, the day money stopped being real. President Richard Nixon appeared on television with an announcement that would change human history. The United States would no longer convert dollars to gold. The gold standard was dead. For the first time in modern civilization, major currencies were backed by nothing except government promises. Economists called it fiat money, money that exists because authorities say it exists. Nixon's advisors assured him this would be temporary, just 90 days to stabilize markets. That temporary measure is still in effect today, 53 years later. Once money became pure abstraction, just numbers in computer systems, something remarkable happened. Governments realized they could manipulate those numbers in ways that were previously impossible. The age of creative accounting had begun. The origins: in 1999, a telecommunications company called Global Crossing was valued at $47 billion. It built fiber optic networks across oceans using a brilliant accounting strategy. They would sell network capacity to other telecom companies, who would simultaneously sell capacity back to them. Both companies would book these transactions as revenue, even though no actual value was created. It was essentially two companies selling the same imaginary product to each other, both claiming massive profits. Wall Street loved it.
Ow!
Stock prices soared. But here's what matters. Governments were watching and learning. If corporations could use accounting tricks to create the illusion of prosperity, why couldn't nations? The techniques already existed. Mark-to-market accounting, off-balance sheet vehicles, special purpose entities, deferred liabilities, creative asset valuation. Governments just needed to scale them up. The rise. By the 2000s, sophisticated accounting manipulation had become standard practice for struggling economies. Trick 1. Pension liability hiding. Governments owe trillions to future retirees. But most countries don't report these obligations as current debt. They're unfunded liabilities pushed off the official books entirely. The accounting rules simply let them pretend half their debt doesn't exist. Trick 2. Central bank asset purchasing. When governments need money, central banks create it digitally and buy government bonds. Now, this is called quantitative easing, a sophisticated term for printing money. The debt exists, but it's owed to the central bank, which is technically separate from the government. Except the central bank is owned by the government. Trick 3. GDP manipulation. In 2013, several European countries suddenly became wealthier overnight. Italy's GDP jumped by 4%, Britain's by 5%. What changed? Nothing real. They simply changed how GDP was calculated, adding estimated values for illegal drug sales and prostitution to make their economies look bigger. Bigger GDP means lower debt to GDP ratios, better numbers. Same reality. The breaking point. The system nearly shattered in 2008. Lehman Brothers collapsed using accounting tricks eerily similar to what governments now employ. They used something called Repo 105, temporarily moving debt off their balance sheet right before quarterly reports, then moving it back after the reports were filed. It was pure accounting fraud. But it kept their financial statements looking healthy until the moment everything imploded. When the crisis hit, governments responded with the biggest accounting trick of all. They declared certain banks too big to fail and moved private corporate debt onto public balance sheets. In the United States alone, the Federal Reserve created $4.5 trillion out of thin air to purchase toxic assets. That money didn't exist Monday morning. By Friday afternoon, it was real. Basic economics says printing trillions of dollars destroys currency value. But there was one more trick. They convinced everyone it wasn't really money printing. They called it liquidity provision and balance sheet expansion. Different words, same action. The fallout. But here's what happened next. The tricks became permanent policy. The Bank of Japan now owns over 50% of all Japanese government bonds. They've e-printed so much money that they own significant stakes in 90% of Japanese companies through ETF purchases. Think about that. The government essentially owns its own debt and its own stock market. It's a closed loop of accounting fiction. But Japan still functions because of one critical factor. Everyone agrees to pretend it's sustainable. The moment anyone important stops believing, the moment investors demand real returns or the currency faces serious competition, the entire structure collapses. This is why Japan desperately fights any challenge to the yen's status. Why they maintain strict capital controls. Why they pressure credit agencies to maintain favorable ratings despite objectively catastrophic debt levels. The trick only works if everyone plays along. Modern parallels look at what's happening right now across the developed world. The European Central Bank holds over 5 trillion euros in bonds, much of it government debt from countries like Italy and Spain that would otherwise face default. The Bank of England was forced to intervene in 2022 when British pension funds nearly collapsed. They created £65 billion instantly to prevent systemic failure. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet exploded from $900 billion in 2008 to $9 trillion at its peak. They've printed more money in 15 years than in the previous 95 years combined. 2022 brought 9% inflation, the highest in 40 years. Accounting tricks had hit their limit. Now, central banks face an impossible choice. Keep the zombie economy alive with more money creation, causing more inflation. Or stop printing and watch the whole system collapse under its actual debt weight. Controlled inflation that slowly erodes debt burdens while destroying savings. Your purchasing power is the release valve for their accounting fiction. First, official economic statistics are fundamentally unreliable. Debt numbers exclude massive liabilities. GDP calculations include imaginary production. Inflation metrics deliberately ignore the prices that matter most. The economy you see in headlines is accounting fiction designed to maintain confidence in a system that would collapse under honest assessment. Second, inflation isn't a natural phenomenon right now. It's a policy choice. It's how governments silently default on debt without officially defaulting. They repay bonds with money that's worth less than when borrowed. Every year of 3% inflation cuts the real value of government debt by 3%. You lose purchasing power. Third, the tricks work until they don't. Every accounting gimmick has a breaking point. The moment public confidence cracks, the moment people stop believing in the value of currency. Decades of accumulated deception unravel in weeks. Closing warning here asks the question, keeping financial insiders awake at night? What happens when multiple zombie economies fail simultaneously? All printing money. All hiding debt. All pretending growth rates matter when they're built on accounting sand. The global financial system is one massive credibility game, and the money has no backing, and the debt can never be repaid. We enter uncharted territory. Are we living in the final days of the greatest accounting illusion in human history? Or can these tricks continue indefinitely? If this changed how you see economic news, subscribe. Comment below. Which country do you think will be the first to run out of accounting tricks? And share this with someone who still trusts official economic statistics. The numbers don't lie, but the accountants, they're magicians.